Welcome to Let's Talk God Things with David and Denise Blakesley, brought to you by the Heart and Homes team at HomeSmart. This is where the supernatural invades the natural and the ordinary is overwhelmed by the extraordinary. We don't call them coincidences, we call them God incidences. Real stories, real faith, a real God at work today. Here's David and Denise Blakesley. Let's talk God things.
Welcome to Let's Talk God Things. This is the show where we pause just long enough to notice what heaven is already doing. I'm David.
And I'm Denise, and we are so glad you're here wherever you're listening from.
You know, each week we're sharing real stories of a real God who's moving in real lives, reminding us that he's closer than we might even think. And today we are so excited to have a very special guest with us, and we're just gonna have a little conversation here today. So, Denise, you know, today's guest kind of makes the rest of us look like we've been procrastinating.
Yeah, just a little. Most 15-year-olds are figuring out driver's permits.
And Rasso's out defending the Constitution. Can you believe that?
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. Ocean is a bold, articulate, young constitutional conservative who has made his mission to preserve freedom for the next generation.
He's already a public speaker in demand. He's an author. He's the host of the Rasso show, and he's addressed thousands on liberty, American values, and constitutional principles.
And not in small rooms either. He's shared stages with national leaders and respected constitutional scholars.
He's also been featured on major national media outlets like Fox News at 15 years old.
And he's been advocating for liberty since he was 10 years old.
That's not just ambition, that's a calling.
Yes. And sometimes that's exactly what a God thing looks like.
Well, as we said, Ocean is an author, a speaker, a young man clearly marked by God for such a time as this.
And Ocean wrote Preserving Freedom for the Next Generation, not just out of passion for America, but out of a deep conviction that freedom is a gift from God and must be stewarded biblically.
At an age when many are distracted or disengaged, Ocean is standing boldly for truth, faith, and responsibility, reminding his generation and ours that liberty without God cannot last.
Yeah, he is living proof that God is raising up young Davids in this hour, voices willing to speak truth, defend freedom, and honor him publicly.
With endorsements and friendships with people like the late Saint Charlie Kirk, Governor Kristi Noem, former U.S. Representative Trent Franks, Representative Andy Biggs, authors like Eric Metaxas, and doctors like Ben Carson, and other leading voices in our great republic. Ocean, it is just so good to have you in the studio with us today. You know, we're living in a time when America's origin story is being debated and even redefined. Some voices say that our nation's true foundation is rooted primarily in oppression and slavery, pointing to movements like the 1619 Project to reframe our beginning. But historically, many scholars and leaders have argued that our founding documents were deeply influenced by Judeo-Christian principles. Ideas like God-given rights, human dignity, moral law, and liberty flowing from our Creator, not from government.
Here on Let's Talk God Things, we believe that when something aligns with truth, with Scripture, and ultimately brings God glory, it must be a God thing.
So let's get started with this question. You know, from your research and your convictions, was America founded on Judeo-Christian principles?
Well, thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, I'm delighted to be here. I think it's apparent that before the founding of America, your rights were determined by who ruled you, right? Think about it. If you lived in Spain during the Inquisition, you were Catholic. If you lived in England during the Tudor dynasty, you were Anglican. And if you lived in Germany during the Reformation, you were Reformed. But furthermore, you could be jailed, you could be fined, or even executed for saying the wrong thing, for reading the wrong book, or for writing the wrong essay. Because the power structure back then, before America's founding, went God, king, people. The king dictated what you believed. But after the founding of America, our founders wrote in the Constitution, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." And in that Constitution, we have something called the Bill of Rights, which is an absolutely incredible document, the first 10 amendments. And they protect things like freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to petition the government. So freedom is a God thing. If you go back to 2 Corinthians 3:17, it says, "For the Lord is a spirit, and where the spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." That's yes, that's actually in my book. It's the very first page is that Bible verse, because we need to be reminded that freedom is not man's idea, it's God's idea.
I want to remind our listeners that your book is entitled "Preserving Freedom for the Next Generation." We've read it, and it's an amazing read. And speaking of reading, it's just amazing that you're sitting here and you're not reading from a script. This has been embedded in who you are from your education, from your homeschooling, from even as we've gotten to know you, from your own desire to learn and to do your own research. That's remarkable.
Yeah, well, I think it's a heinous lie to say that America was founded on anti-Christian values. That's the biggest lie that this generation has been told.
Amen.
First is that they don't have a voice, but second is that our founders were a bunch of atheists and deists who didn't believe in a God. 55 out of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. And it was mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence, most prominently, the law of nature and nature's God. So God is embedded into the very fabric of America. And if we continue to separate that, if you take away the foundation, the whole tower collapses, and that's what we're seeing today, now more than ever. But there's also another lie you alluded to earlier, the 1619 Project, which wants to rewrite American history and say, no, America wasn't founded in 1776 when brave patriots decided to sign a death warrant, aka the Declaration of Independence. No, it was founded in 1619 when the first slaves came to the United States, to the shores of America. But slavery has existed way before that. We know that as a fact. And also, America is founded on Christian values. And what does the Bible say? Neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, all are free in Jesus Christ. So it's absolutely ridiculous to say that America was founded on racism when I see no evidence for that today.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And that goes back to my question: how does your faith impact your book and the message you're sharing with this generation?
Well, I've been guided by my faith since a very young age. I was just like Charlie in that I got baptized at a young age and I came to Christ at a very young age. But I've seen God play a role in my mission, and it's absolutely incredible to see, because I also serve as the president of a Turning Point chapter in my community.
Wow.
And never before had I envisioned registering to start a chapter. It's never a thought that had crossed my mind. But about 2 to 3 months before Charlie's passing, I was approached by a young lady, and she said, "Hey, why don't you sign up to become a chapter leader?" And I just had this feeling, it was almost like the Holy Spirit telling me, sign that paper, register to start a chapter. And about 2 months later, Charlie is martyred. And I get told, if you wouldn't have registered that chapter, that probably would have never happened.
Wow.
Because Turning Point has had thousands, about 10,000, 15,000 chapter applications. And it's incredible to see. But if, sometimes if I would have not have taken that leap of faith, hey, I got to start a chapter. I don't know why I get this feeling I have to start a chapter. And now I have the honor of leading young people in my community to a Christ-centered, biblically based patriotic
Yes.
foundation, understanding that America is worth saving and preserving.
That is a total God thing right there, Ocean. I mean, for that to happen 2 months before Charlie was martyred. I mean, 2 months. If that is a total God thing.
It is. And, even in what I do, I'm attacked viciously every day. And I'm not the only one. And Charlie used to say, if you're not getting death threats, you're doing nothing for the movement. And so I have received threats, and I have received, I've been called every name in the book, from racist to fascist. But at the end of the day, I pray for those who persecute me because I know that they are blind and that they believe America is a vile, racist nation. They've been fed a lie. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, truth will prevail. I never stop seeking the truth. I call myself a truth seeker. And so I think it's important that we do pray for our enemies, because that's, we have such a division in America today.
Yeah.
It's right or left, it's Republican or Democrat. But really, what I care about, I don't care whether you have an R or D in front of your name. I want to know, do you understand the Constitution first and foremost?
Right.
I don't care whether a bill is supposedly good or bad. Is it constitutional? Because I believe the Constitution is a document that was brought about through Judeo-Christian ethics and values.
Yeah. Yeah.
You say pray for your enemies, or pray for those who are persecuting you. And I know you're not even driving yet, but I can tell you that when I'm out on the highway or on the surface streets, I get cut off. It is really hard even to pray for somebody who just cut me off.
Yeah.
But you're receiving death threats. Why? Because you are standing up for everybody's freedom.
Yeah.
Not just cherry picking, these people or this class or anything in particular. You're standing up for the God-given freedoms that were given to America. So can you talk a little bit more about some of those voices that you've come to know that are really standing up in our generation for our God-given freedoms?
Yeah, well, I think young people have been lied to so much. They've been told they don't have a voice, they shouldn't speak because, you're too young and you're insignificant and what you say won't matter. They've been told that Christianity is a lie and that they need to be atheists and believe the science, even though science isn't completely true, it's ever changing. That's the literal definition of science, is something that's ever changing with new facts and understanding. And so, I have the honor of speaking to thousands across this state, but every time I go out, I never see young people. And that really saddens me. It's, they just aren't engaged anymore, and they've kind of lost hope. But now after Charlie's passing, I do believe the Lord can use all things to his good. Mm-hmm. And it has been absolutely incredible to see the outpour now of young people who are standing up and ready to fight for their beliefs, ready to fight for their God-given rights that the founders preserved for them, that our leaders fought for. Men and women fought and died for these rights, so it's important to preserve them. And I think even further than that, this revolution's never going to die. I've met so many young people now, and I never would have thought that these young people are reading the classic works. They're reading the Bible diligently. They're studying the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They're reading the works of our founders, and they're standing up in their community and they're saying, this isn't right. I care about freedom is whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't violate somebody else's life, liberty, or property.
Yes.
And that's a God thing. It truly is, because Christianity gives you free will. It's absolutely incredible. You haven't seen this in any other religion really until Christianity comes around. And so it's absolutely incredible to see these young people in action, taking action. But I've also been honored to meet many politicians and conservative leaders around this state. And I think they're ready. I think we're ready to fight. And I always say we need a revolution of common sense. That's what we need, because common sense is a Christian value. It is biblically based, and we need to get back to that in our society.
Exactly.
So if there's a false narrative that's being taught in the public school system, and somebody is not homeschooled and taught how to read for themselves and to do their own deep dive and to think for themselves, where do they go to find the truth?
Well, you need to go back to the documents themselves. I have it in my book. The back of my book is dedicated to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. My book, Preserving Freedom for the Next Generation, in that title, I'm all about freedom, right? And I go through, I've been reading these documents over the past few months, leading up to the publication of my book, and even after I've continued reading them. During the founding, there's so many documents, it's absolutely incredible. But I love the Virginia Declaration of Rights, where it lays out that freedom is a God thing, that our right to free speech, that is God inspired. All these different rights that come from a Christian religion. And it's absolutely incredible to see that. And so I always say, go back to the source, go back to the original document, because sadly, we don't have these ideas taught in the public schools.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're told young people today believe that we're a democracy. That's not true. As you alluded to earlier, we're a republic, and furthermore, we're a constitutional republic. When people ask me, well, what's a democracy? Well, I love what one of the founders said. He said that a democracy is like two wolves and a sheep voting on what is for lunch. It is the tyranny of the majority. It ensures that there are factions. That's what we're seeing today. Mm-hmm. We're seeing these factions trying to gain control of the government.
Yeah.
That's not what the founders wanted. Democracy cares about what the majority of people want. Mm-hmm. A republic cares about what the minority views are. They want to protect that one person that may have a differing view. That one person may have a different thought.
Yeah. I have a question that's been burning in my mind. This whole truth thing, my truth, your truth, their truth. Can you expand on that a little bit and give us a little clarity on what your thoughts are?
Well, there's only one truth. I hear this all the time. It's like, oh, well, you believe your truth and I'll believe my truth. Well, can we get back to the original foundation of what is true?
Right.
And in my book, I also reference there's 3 rules of logic, but one of them is non-contradiction. You can't have A cannot be B, and B cannot be A. It doesn't work that way. So you can't have your truth and my truth and not have the truth, right? Men can't be women. That's just logical.
Yep.
And our society today is so concerned with perversion of truth. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the fruit of this anti-truth tree in the next generation, because my generation is the most violent generation. My generation is the most depressed generation. Mine is the most addicted. We are the most without hope.
Wow.
And I see it all the time. We're so depressed. We're so overstimulated. And, we're looking for the latest thing that's coming. We need to get back to the Bible and what is true and what is good and what is beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that is what guided our foundation of our nation. That's what made empires great, was realizing that there is an ultimate truth, that God is ultimate truth, that we need to pursue that with vigor and with hope. Because I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm not an optimist because I see that men are fallen. Mm-hmm. I'm not a pessimist because, I think things can get good. But I have hope because that's what my faith commands. And I see the next generation rising up, and I see them fighting for biblical values that founded and spurred the greatest nation ever to have existed in the history of the earth.
Wow.
Well, we were having a conversation a little bit earlier about some current news that you had found in a debate or in a bill. Can you shed a little bit of light on what you were sharing with us earlier?
Is it pertaining to the Maricopa County?
Yes.
Yeah. So I always say, biblically, you need to get involved in your local government. That's super important. It's absolutely crucial. So I campaign for people all the time because I want to have strong conservative not in the political sense, more of conserving values, because that's what conservative means, right?
Yes.
We're supposed to conserve certain things, right? So we can't have a generation that's entirely indoctrinated to where they believe that you can change your gender every 5 seconds and that you can become a dog. And we can't have a generation that's so distanced from the truth that they're, kind of flippity-flopping everything. We have to have the perfect balance of instilling values, yet allowing a free-thinking generation to thrive.
Yes.
And so that's what we need to get back to when it comes to local governance. So I've had the honor of speaking with a lot of local politicians and having these discussions about what true freedom is and what the Constitution is. And I've shared the stage with many of them. They're great people. But nowadays we're seeing corruption. And that's what that's the greatest ill in our society is apathy. And it's perpetuated by weak leadership from corrupt politicians. And sustained by cultural apathy and societal disdain for truth. And so what we're seeing now at a micro level in Maricopa County alone is this Board of Supervisors versus Maricopa County Recorder. And I get into this in my podcast, The Ocean Rasso Show. It's on YouTube. And I want to analyze it through three lenses: Christian, conservative, constitutional. And while the Constitution's a federal document, so it really doesn't apply as much as it should, but we can still analyze to these other issues, right? And so taking a look at if this is happening in Maricopa County alone, if we're having so much division that when the conservative movement finally gets power, all of a sudden we have so much infighting. We see this in Congress and we see this in the state legislature, and it is tiring me. We have so much division.
Yeah.
We have so many rumors and conspiracy theories about, who killed Charlie Kirk and is Erica Kirk this or that. No, Erica Kirk's an amazing person.
Yeah.
We know what happened. There's no conspiracy theories going on with that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we know for a fact that we need to be united if we're going to continue winning and continue fighting for the truth. And the truth is we need to get back to biblical-centered, Christ-centered, America first policy. There's only one side doing that.
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend in Trent Franks.
Yes.
And Trent has defined the difference between a politician and a statesman.
He did. I was on the phone with him for about an hour. We had a very good conversation. I always enjoy talking with people who've come out of the political battlefield, as I like to call it, because they've been through everything. They've been conspiracy theories and they've been lied about, all these different things. And so I was talking to him and he goes, "Oh, Ocean, you need to be a statesman when you grow up." And I said, "Well, what's the difference between a politician and a statesman?" Because I told him, I want to run for all. I hope to, if it's God's will. I'd love to serve the people at any level and fight for truth. And he goes, "Well, you have to be a statesman, not a politician." Well, what's the difference? Well, a politician looks to the next election. Statesmen, they look to the next generation.
That's good.
And that's exactly what we're seeing in Arizona, in the United States, worldwide today. That's how you can make a good judgment on who to vote for. Are they just working towards getting that next election, getting on the ballot again? Or are they fighting for the next generation of Americans? I see so many people who aren't, but I see a ton of people that are fighting for the next generation. And it's absolutely incredible.
Love to see more of that. It seems that there are two lost arts. The art of recognizing that there is only one truth, and the lost art of looking up to the one who is the truth. And that's why we like to say that it must be a God thing, because when we recognize his sovereignty over everything, whether it's politics or what we perceive as religion or denominational, which means division in the church.
Yes.
When we see his sovereignty over all of that, and then we do something about it, then we can regain the beautiful art of looking up to the one who is sovereign and Lord over it all. Amen. And unfortunately, time just goes way too fast, Ocean. We would love to have you and your folks, if they're willing to come in, to come back and continue the conversation, because there is so much more and a lot in your book.
Yeah.
Preserving Freedom for the Next Generation.
It is available for purchase at oceanrasso.com.
Yes. Oceanrasso.com.
Can you spell that?
Yes, OCEANRASSO.com.
Awesome. And can we also access your podcast through oceanrasso.com?
Yes, you can. You can also go onto YouTube and just search at Ocean Rasso, OCEANRASSO, or you can just look up the Ocean Rasso Show. We discuss all sorts of current issues facing our nation through the lens of the next generation.
And I highly recommend that you tune in and buy the book.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So again, we want to thank you for listening in. And as we close out today's show, we want to remind you to be encouraged, to ask God how you can use your own unique gifts and callings to be a blessing in your own home, in your workplace, in your community. And we want to thank you so much and remind you that this show is brought to you by the Heart and Homes team at HomeSmart, where we want to see you moved. I'm David.
And I'm Denise. Until next time, Lord bless you and keep you.
May he make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you, and give you his peace. Bye-bye.